This story ends with a mother move so brilliant it'll make every mom and grandma proud. Don't miss the last 5 seconds. Before we dive in, sneak into the like button's kitchen, steal her cookie recipe, and lock that subscribe bell in the pantry. Because today, smart love is the hero. A widowed mom senses her daughter's secret greed, and quietly builds a plan that saves both her future and her family. Martha Delaney never hurried her mornings. At 68, the retired Vermont principal moved through the kitchen like a patient conductor. Kettle on, lemons sliced thin, Clover the golden retriever circling her ankles with soft thumps of tail. The maple trees outside were just beginning to bud. A shy green halo rimmed each branch. It was the kind of peace you earn over decades. One grocery list at a time, one paid bill at a time, one prayer whispered at midnight when no one is watching. Her phone lit with Vanessa. "Mom!" Her daughter's voice came bright and breathless, like someone running downhill. "We found it. The lake house. It's small, cozy really, but the deck looks straight over the water. We just need to move fast before Memorial Day prices hit the roof." Martha smiled at the window and pinched the lemon slice into her mug. "It sounds lovely, honey. Tell me about the numbers." "Oh, it's all doable," Vanessa said quickly. "Evan's got spreadsheets. It's basically free if we rent a few weekends in summer and, maybe you help with a down payment. It's a family asset anyway. Think of your grandkids one day, fishing off the dock." Martha felt a tiny tug. Not at the bait but at the word family. It was the most beautiful word she knew, and the easiest to misuse. "I'll take a look," she said. "Give me a week." When the call ended, the kitchen settled back into the sound of the kettle's slow breath. Martha carried her tea to the table and pulled out a slim folder from the hutch. Navy linen, corners slightly worn. A small embossed iris on the cover. Blue iris. She'd started it the month after her husband died. The month she realized grief doesn't stop the mail from coming, and it certainly doesn't negotiate with the electric company. Inside the folder, a neat list of accounts. The kind of list only a former principal could love. Pension. Savings. A modest mutual fund. The emergency joint account she'd opened with Vanessa back when her daughter was 24, and a flat tire felt like the end of the world. She opened her laptop and logged in. The account history populated in tidy rows, and something cold slid under her ribs. $5,000. Family travel. $2,500. Car repair. $3,200. Home maintenance. All recent. All authorized with an e-signature that matched hers. Except she hadn't touched that account in months. Martha set her mug down very carefully. She rechecked the device logins and saw a fingerprint ID she didn't recognize. New iPhone. The location trail bounced between Vanessa's suburb and a strip mall near Evan's gym. "Clover," she said softly, "we have a math problem." The dog cocked her head. Martha didn't call to accuse. She had taught hundreds of teenagers to think before reacting, to verify before punishing. Adults, she had learned, need the same grace. Instead, she took out a yellow legal pad and wrote facts at the top in neat block letters. 1. Joint account. 3 withdrawals unapproved. 2. E-signature spoofed or copied. 3. Possible second party involved, Evan. 4. Upcoming lake house pitch, urgency. Under that, she wrote feelings and surprised herself by listing only one. Sadness. Not the explosive kind that wants to break a plate. The old kind. The kind that sits next to you and remembers Christmas mornings and scraped knees and a teenager's sullen apology when curfew returned to normal. She pushed the legal pad aside and took a breath that went all the way down to the soles of her feet. Then she reached for her second folder, crisp white, labeled in pencil, Trust Draft. Ruth Klein, her attorney, had given it to her 2 years ago with a friendly challenge. You won't need this until you need it. Let's be ready anyway. The office on River Street smelled like cedar and winter coffee. Ruth was a woman whose sentences arrived fully ironed. Martha called for a same-day appointment. What do you want to protect? Ruth asked, pen poised. My home. My pension. What's left of his life insurance? Martha said, meaning her late husband without saying his name. And, if possible, my relationship with my daughter. Ruth's pen slowed. Both are possible. The first with paper. The second with patience. They worked for 2 hours. The trust would carry a simple name and a private passphrase. Transfers above a threshold would trigger a phone call to Martha, and a physical code phrase spoken aloud before anything moved. The passphrase would be a memory no one could guess from social media or birthday cakes. First Snowfall, Martha said. The night he proposed, the first flakes surprised the town. Every lamppost looked dressed for a wedding. Ruth smiled. Beautiful. And unguessable. We'll require the phrase verbally for any action above, say, 5,000. They added a hold harmless clause for financial institutions that paused suspicious requests, and a 2-key rule for property. It couldn't be sold or encumbered without Martha's in-person signature and the phrase. Ruth also suggested moving the joint emergency account to view-only status for Vanessa. Visible but not touchable. Not yet, Martha said. If I close the door now, I lose the chance to see how she knocks. Ruth studied her. You want to learn who's holding the handle. I want to rescue my daughter from a bad habit before it becomes her character. They finished the paperwork and set the activation for Friday. On the walk home, the river was a ribbon of pewter, and a light flurry dusted Martha's coat. She stood on the footbridge a moment longer than necessary and let the cold remind her. Clarity can feel like winter first. Spring comes later. That evening the phone lit again. Vanessa's tone was lighter, but too practiced. Mom, any updates? Listings are moving. Evan says we should get pre-approval tonight. Maybe pull from that emergency account so you don't have to liquidate anything stressful. Stressful, Martha repeated gently, tasting the word. Give me till Sunday. Come for brunch. Perfect. Vanessa chirped. We'll bring coffee. After the call, Martha opened the joint account a second time. Another small withdrawal had appeared. $600 miscellaneous. Errands. A probe, a tow testing the water. She closed the laptop and wrote a new heading on the legal pad. Sunday brunch. Phase 1. She listed her menu. Maple pecan scones, eggs baked with cream and chives, bacon on parchment so it stays flat and crisp. Beneath the menu she listed goals. Warm tone. No accusations. A present Delaney family partnership. Preliminary. Ruth's draft with the key clause. Watch for eye flicker, throat swallow, pen hesitation. Give them a gracious exit. No cornering. She slept easily that night for the first time in a week. Planning, she knew, is an antidote to panic. On Saturday, Martha drove to the farmer's market for chives and cream. A woman from church stopped her near the honey booth. How's that lovely girl of yours? The woman asked. She's learning, Martha said, which was true for both of them. At home, Martha polished the good flatware. She set 3 places at the maple table and placed a small glass vase of irises in the center, their purple throats opening like tiny doorways. Clover followed her from room to room, satisfied by the ceremony of it all. Late that afternoon, Evan texted, "Running numbers now. Will be great to sign tomorrow." He added a thumbs up and a lake emoji. Martha texted a heart and said nothing else. Then she did one last thing. She opened the joint account and moved a small sum into it from her private savings, just enough to look tempting to anyone who had grown used to sneaking sips from the pitcher. She stared at the new balance. $14,300. Let's see how thirsty you are, she whispered to the empty kitchen. At 11:47 p.m., while Clover dreamed soft dog dreams at the foot of the bed, Martha's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Withdrawal request. $1,200. Pending. The timestamp suggested someone standing in a dim apartment kitchen, typing quietly while another person slept. Martha did not cancel it. She let the request clear. Not because she didn't value the money, but because some lessons, like splinters, have to work their way to the surface before you can remove them cleanly. Sunday arrived with a sky the color of a polished spoon. The house smelled like butter and cinnamon and the kind of welcome you remember in your bones. Vanessa arrived in a bright sweater, cheeks flushed. Evan followed with a careful smile and a leather folder. "Mom, this looks amazing," Vanessa said, kissing her cheek. She looked around the kitchen the way children do when they come home to a place that raised them, cataloging the unchanging things as if to prove the world still has anchors. "We'll eat, then talk," Martha said, and meant it. Food first. Hospitality before business. It was a rule she'd invented in her 20s and never found a reason to break. At the table, the conversation warmed like the coffee. Stories of neighborhood gossip, Clover's latest mischief, a recipe Martha pretended she'd invented but had actually clipped from a magazine in 1998. When the plates were clearing, Martha brought out a single sheet of paper clipped to a manila folder. "I put together a simple partnership document," she said lightly. "It keeps everyone honest and safe if we do this lake house together." Evan's smile tightened by a millimeter. "Love the initiative." Vanessa reached for the pen before she'd even read the title. Old habit. Her mother eyed the instinct and felt a pinch in her heart. Not anger, but the ache of recognizing your child's reflection in a flaw you've hidden from yourself. The paragraph halfway down the page sat there like a lit match. All parties confirm that no prior withdrawals or transfers have been made from shared accounts without mutual consent. Vanessa's pen hovered. Her eyes did a tiny left-right flicker that only a parent would see. Evan leaned forward, skimming, his hand covering the clause as if his palm could erase letters. "What's this about?" he asked with a small laugh. "Standard protection," Martha said, tone even. "So we never have to wonder if anyone took a shortcut. Sign and we'll call the realtor." A long second passed. Then another. Outside, a woodpecker tested the bird feeder post. Vanessa set the pen down very carefully. "Maybe we should have our guy look this over." "You may," Martha said, standing to refill coffee. "But I'm only moving forward today if we all sign today. It's one of my new rules." "New rules." Vanessa's smile frayed. "Growing up," Martha said, placing a fresh mug by her daughter's hand, "isn't just for children. No raised voices. No accusations. Just a mother's quiet, unblinking gaze that said, 'I taught you to tell the truth because you are worthy of it.'" Evan closed the leather folder. "We'll be in touch," he said, trying to make it sound like an adult decision and not a retreat. "Take scones," Martha said, wrapping two in parchment and pressing the warm bundle into Vanessa's hands. "Text me when you get home." The door closed. The house exhaled. Clover reached Martha's knee first, asking with her eyes whether everything was still okay. "It will be," Martha said, kneeling to scratch the dog's ears. "It will be." Her phone vibrated. Withdrawal request. $1,200. Cleared. Right on schedule. Another message snapped in 2 minutes later. Attempted transfer. $8,000. Blocked. The trust activation had quietly gone live at noon. Martha smiled without triumph. She was not hunting prey. She was bringing a daughter home from a dangerous edge. She washed the coffee cups, dried them with a soft towel her mother had embroidered years ago, tiny blue irises along the border, and put everything in its place. Then she sat at the table where the pen had hovered and wrote afternoon. Phase 2 on the legal pad. There was nothing hollow in her voice when she said aloud, to no one and to God, "Thank you for giving me time to think." Outside, the river slipped by like a polished ribbon, and the afternoon light laid itself gently across the table, blessing the plan a mother makes when she refuses to choose between truth and love. Martha confirms unauthorized withdrawals, prepares the trust with a spoken passphrase, First Snowfall, and stages a gentle but revealing brunch that exposes the problem without a fight. The money movers blink, the mother does not. Sunday evening settled over Vermont with the slow hush of falling ash. Martha Delaney's cedar-sided house smelled faintly of cinnamon and strategy. The brunch table was cleared, the scones long eaten, but the conversation still echoed in her mind like the last ring of a church bell. Vanessa and Evan had left without signing the partnership paper. No shouting, no storming, just a polite retreat that revealed everything Martha needed to know. The legal clause about no unauthorized withdrawals had landed like a stone in a pond. She could still feel the ripples. Phase 1 is complete, she thought. Now for the hard part, protecting the future without destroying the present. She lit a single beeswax candle, sat at her maple desk, and opened the folder marked First Snowfall. The trust activation had already confirmed by email. Fully active. 2 key rule enforced. Passphrase required for all transfers. Ruth Klein, her attorney, had kept her promise. Money alone, however, was never Martha's only goal. She wanted her daughter back on the right side of integrity. Monday morning, Martha visited the local bank in person. "Ms. Delaney," said the branch manager, a kind man named Joel who had once been in her algebra class, "everything looks solid. We can flag that joint account for real-time alerts. Any withdrawal triggers a call and requires the phrase." "Good," she said. "But leave it open for now. I need to observe." Joel tilted his head. "You're giving them rope." "I'm giving them time to climb back," she replied. On the way out, she stopped by the bulletin board with local notices. Yoga classes, lost cats, a maple syrup festival. She pinned a small handwritten card. Financial safety workshop, free. Practical tips for families. Saturday 3 p.m. at the library. No name, just the town phone line for RSVP. If Vanessa's curiosity ever brought her there, she would find her mother teaching quietly in the corner. By Wednesday, the quiet watchfulness bore fruit. Martha's phone buzzed twice before breakfast. A withdrawal attempt. $4,500. Pending approval. A transfer attempt. $7,200. Blocked by First Snowfall Trust. Martha let the first attempt clear and calmly rejected the second. She brewed her tea and fed Clover, humming a hymn she used to sing during fire drills at school to keep students calm. Later that day Vanessa called, voice syrupy but stretched thin. "Mom, Evan's brother found a cheaper property. But we need earnest money today. Could you send a quick transfer? We'll reimburse you after closing." Martha smiled into the phone, her voice gentle as fresh linen. "I can't move funds without an in-person verification. It's the bank's new rule. But you can stop by for supper if you like." There was a pause. I'll check with Evan." The call ended. Martha closed her eyes. She remembered Vanessa at 7 years old, trying to hide a broken teacup behind her back, cheeks flushed with the same mixture of fear and hope. That child, she believed, was still in there. That evening Ruth Klein stopped by. They sat by the fire with mugs of ginger tea. You've bought yourself time, Ruth said. Now decide what you want that time to do, punish or heal. Heal, Martha said without hesitation. But I need to see the full truth first. They discussed legal options, restitution clauses, monitored repayment plans, optional counseling referrals. Ruth admired the delicate line Martha walked. Most people swing a hammer, she said. You're using a needle and thread. Martha chuckled softly. Teaching high school for 30 years trains you to mend more than fabric. By Friday, Martha had a plan. She invited Vanessa and Evan to a family dinner for Saturday evening. Just comfort food, she said on the phone. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Your dad's old favorite. Sounds perfect, Vanessa replied a little too quickly. What Vanessa didn't know was that Martha had also invited Pastor Claire, the family's longtime spiritual mentor, and Joel, the bank manager who had once been Martha's student. Both would come casually as surprise drop-ins, each prepared to share gentle wisdom on trust and money. Saturday arrived with golden light. Martha arranged the dining room with quiet symbolism, a candle at each place, and in the center, a framed photo of her late husband smiling beneath a Vermont maple. She whispered to the picture, "Let's bring our girl back." When the doorbell rang, Vanessa and Evan entered with forced cheer. Evan carried a bouquet. Vanessa set down a pie. Minutes later, Pastor Claire appeared, laughing about running into Joel outside. The meal began warmly. Conversation floated from old school memories to town events. But midway through dessert, Martha stood and laid a fresh sheet of paper on the table. "This," she said, "is the new family trust charter. I'd like to read it aloud." Evan's fork paused. Vanessa's eyes flickered. The room quieted. Martha's voice was steady, almost musical. This trust protects the Delaney family's legacy. It states clearly that any person who withdraws funds without mutual consent is responsible for full restitution and will meet with both a financial counselor and a family mediator. It also promises that no one is beyond forgiveness when honesty is restored. Joel added kindly, "It's the best structure we see for families who want both accountability and second chances." Pastor Claire nodded. "This isn't punishment. It's a covenant." Vanessa's hand trembled on her napkin. "Mom, why are you doing this?" Martha looked into her daughter's eyes, the same hazel flecked with green that once stared up at her from a cradle. "Because love isn't just hugs and holidays. Love builds safe walls so we can grow inside them." Tears welled in Vanessa's eyes. Evan tried to speak but found no words. The dinner becomes a gentle public crossroads, supportive witnesses, clear truth, no escape into denial. The house was quiet long after the guests left. Near midnight, Martha heard a car door outside and then soft knocking. Vanessa stood on the porch, eyes red from crying. Inside, she blurted the truth. "It started small. We thought we'd replace it after the lake house rented. Then Evan lost a freelance contract and it snowballed. Hated lying, Mom. I hated myself." Martha held her hands, rough from gardening, warm as always. "Thank you for coming back to tell me yourself." Vanessa sobbed. "I don't deserve forgiveness." "Forgiveness," Martha said softly, "isn't earned. But trust will need rebuilding step by step." They talked until 2 in the morning. Martha explained that First Snowfall now held the bulk of her savings and home equity. It was non-negotiable. But she also offered a path: restitution through small monthly payments, financial counseling, and volunteer work for the local family safety fund. Vanessa nodded, weeping. "I want to make it right." Martha kissed her forehead. "Then let's begin." When dawn came, Clover nudged the kitchen door open. The smell of fresh coffee filled the house. Vanessa sat at the table, eyes swollen but peaceful. Martha placed a blank notebook in front of her. "First page is for numbers," she said. "Second is for feelings. We balance both." As the morning sun poured across the maple floor, Martha felt something she hadn't in months. Quiet relief. Her plan had worked, not by crushing her daughter but by giving her a safe road home. The mother's careful countermove, legal protection, subtle community support, and patient love, draws out the full confession and sets a redemptive path forward, without a single angry outburst. For the first time in months, Martha Delaney awoke to a quiet house that didn't feel heavy. The Vermont morning was clear, with a thin frost silvering the herb garden outside her kitchen window. Clover the golden retriever stretched luxuriously on the braided rug, sensing peace in the air. Yet Martha knew this was only the beginning. Trust was safe, the money secure. But true healing between mother and daughter would take more than signatures and passwords. By midweek, Vanessa returned with a humble plan of her own. She slid a notebook across the maple table, the same one her mother had given her days earlier. Inside were neatly written budgets, lists of debts, and a proposed repayment schedule. "It isn't much," Vanessa said softly, "but every month I'll deposit a fixed amount back into the joint account. And every quarter I'll show you receipts and balances." Martha looked at the careful handwriting and felt a flicker of hope. "This is a good beginning," she said. "But trust isn't only about dollars. It's about rhythm, showing up again and again." Together they added a second page titled Family Time, a commitment to one shared meal each week, no excuses, no phones at the table. Vanessa agreed. Evan, noticeably absent, sent a brief text saying he needed space to rethink priorities. Neither woman pressed for more. That Friday, Pastor Claire invited mother and daughter to a small group she hosted called Grace in Practice, focused on family reconciliation. It wasn't therapy, more like a circle of gentle witnesses. They met in the church's sunlit library, the smell of old hymnals mixing with fresh coffee. One by one, people shared stories of hard apologies, sons returning after years, sisters forgiving decades-old betrayals. Vanessa listened with wet eyes, and when her turn came she said only, "I took what wasn't mine, and my mother still opened the door." Martha placed an arm around her shoulders. Words weren't necessary. Vanessa begins to experience community accountability, transforming private guilt into shared, healing responsibility. But growth is never a straight climb. 2 weeks later, a text arrived while Vanessa and Martha were planting early tulips together. "Emergency. Evan locked out of his apartment. Needs $2,000 tonight. Please help." Vanessa froze. Old reflexes trembled through her fingers. She started to type "I can transfer" and then stopped. She looked at her mother. Martha gently took the phone. "Let's breathe for a moment." They called Pastor Claire for a neutral sounding board. Together they talked through the choices. Send money with no plan, or insist Evan contact his landlord and take personal responsibility. Vanessa finally texted back, "I'm sorry you're in trouble. Can't send money. Let's meet with the landlord tomorrow and find a proper solution. No accusation, no panic. A boundary firm and kind." Martha watched pride and relief mingle in her daughter's face. "You just chose trust over rescue," she said. "That's the hardest step." A fresh crisis tests Vanessa's change, and proves it's real. With immediate money matters under control, deeper questions surfaced. One evening, while sorting family photographs, Vanessa stared at a faded picture of her late father, Thomas. "I think part of me blamed you," she admitted quietly. "After Dad died, you were so strong. I mistook your strength for distance. Maybe taking the money was a way to feel close to him, to grab something that felt like his support." Martha placed a hand over hers. "I never meant to seem far away. I stayed strong because I thought you needed an anchor." The two women sat in silence, the soft tick of the wall clock carrying years of unspoken grief. They decided to begin a shared memory project, recording Thomas's stories on video, revisiting places he loved, and writing letters to him as a way of expressing everything left unsaid. That night, Martha wrote in her journal, "Trust can be rebuilt, but only if we name the pain that cracked it in the first place." Weeks turned into months. Vanessa kept every repayment appointment, even adding extra from freelance design jobs. She joined Martha in hosting financial safety workshops at the library, where mothers and grandmothers learned to set up trusts, create secret passphrase, and talk openly about inheritance. At the close of one workshop, an older woman clasped Martha's hand. "You saved more than your own family today," she said. Martha's heart swelled with gratitude. One evening, Vanessa arrived carrying a thick envelope. "I've repaid every dollar," she said, handing over final receipts. "But if you'll allow it, I'd like to give more. This is for your Blue Iris Education Fund. I want to invest in the future you dreamed of." Martha hugged her, tears warm on her cheeks. "This," she whispered, "is the return I prayed for." The daughter not only restores what was taken but becomes a partner in the very mission designed to protect others. With finances secure and hearts healing, Martha and Vanessa planned a public launch for the Blue Iris Education Fund, a scholarship program for single mothers seeking further education. They booked the town hall for early summer, inviting neighbors, church friends, and past students. In preparing her speech, Martha reflected on the journey. The hidden withdrawals, the silent countermove, the midnight confession. Every step, painful as it was, had shaped something enduring. On a bright June morning, she and Vanessa stood side by side beneath a banner painted with blue irises and the words "Love Protects." Martha addressed the gathering with calm authority. "A family's greatest wealth isn't in bank accounts, it's in trust. We nearly lost ours. But love, when it is wise as well as warm, can rebuild anything." Applause filled the hall. Vanessa wiped her eyes, then took the microphone. "I once thought money could buy security. I learned the hard way that only honesty can." The crowd stood in ovation. For a long moment, Martha simply held her daughter's hand, feeling the steady pulse of reconciliation. Through counseling, shared memories, and hard financial honesty, mother and daughter turn guilt into growth. Multiple real-time tests prove their new trust is strong, not fragile. Martha's quiet strength and Vanessa's genuine repentance transform private betrayal into a public legacy of wisdom and love. A gentle July rain tapped the cedar shingles of Martha Delaney's Vermont home as dawn slid across the lake. Clover, her faithful golden retriever, stretched and yawned. Inside, the house smelled of fresh bread and summer herbs, comfort layered with quiet anticipation. Today marked the public launch of the Blue Iris Education Fund, the project that had grown out of betrayal, confession, and hard-won forgiveness. Martha paused at her kitchen window, recalling every turn of the journey. The first suspicious bank alerts, the tense brunch where silence spoke louder than words, the late-night knock when her daughter Vanessa finally confessed. She thought of all the prayers whispered between those moments. This is what grace looks like when it has enough time to grow, she reflected. By late morning, the town hall brimmed with neighbors, church friends, and former students. A banner of deep indigo and white irises framed the stage. Soft instrumental music floated in the background. Vanessa arrived early, carrying 2 framed photographs, one of her late father, Thomas, and another of the young family they used to be. She placed them on a small table beside the podium. "Dad deserves to be here," Vanessa said, voice steady but tender. Martha squeezed her daughter's hand. "He is." Reporters from the local paper and a regional lifestyle magazine set up cameras. Joel, the bank manager who'd quietly helped secure the trust, adjusted his tie as Pastor Claire handed out programs titled Love Protects, A Family's Journey to Renewal. When the room settled, Martha approached the podium. The microphone carried her voice in a calm, inviting cadence. "Welcome, friends. 6 months ago, I discovered something painful. Money missing, trust cracked, and a future that suddenly felt uncertain. What you may not know is that the person who betrayed that trust was my own beloved daughter." Gasps murmured through the crowd, but Martha lifted a hand with quiet assurance. "What happened next is why we are here. Instead of anger, we chose a plan. Legal protection to guard what was left, patient love to save what still could grow, and a commitment to rebuild honesty step by step. Today, the same daughter who once took is now giving, back to me and to this community." Vanessa stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. "I stand here forgiven and changed. Mom's wisdom didn't just protect her savings. It saved me from shortcuts, from secrecy, from becoming someone I never wanted to be. The Blue Iris Fund is proof that we can turn even our worst mistakes into something good." The audience rose in applause. A few people wiped away tears. Cameras flashed, but what filled the room was deeper than a headline. It was the quiet electricity of shared hope. Within weeks, the Blue Iris Fund received donations from across Vermont and neighboring states. Former students of Martha's sent letters remembering how she'd once paid their field trip fees in secret. Single mothers wrote to say they finally felt seen. Vanessa threw herself into fundraising with the same energy she had once poured into reckless spending. She organized art auctions and weekend fairs, always crediting her mother's steady faith. Ruth Klein, their attorney, formalized the fund as a registered nonprofit. "This is no longer just a family trust," Ruth said at a board meeting. "It's a model for financial dignity and intergenerational healing." Martha smiled. "Exactly what I hoped for." One brisk September morning, a letter arrived addressed to Vanessa in a hand she didn't recognize. Inside was a short note and a cashier's check for $15,000. The signature, Evan. "I took advantage of your love and your mother's grace. Sorry. Use this to grow the Blue Iris Fund. E." Vanessa held the check with shaking fingers. "Mom, I didn't ask for this." Martha looked at her daughter with quiet satisfaction. "That's what true karma looks like. We sow the seeds of honesty. Eventually, even those who hurt us feel the pull to make things right." They deposited the check directly into the scholarship account, naming it the First Snowfall grant to honor the secret phrase that had protected their family from the start. The very person who once encouraged deception now contributes to the legacy fund, a living symbol of unexpected redemption. The story of the Blue Iris Fund began circulating beyond Vermont. National morning shows requested interviews. Podcasts on family finance and spiritual renewal invited Martha and Vanessa to share their journey. Emails arrived from as far away as Alaska and the UK. Mothers and grandmothers inspired to create their own family passwords and trust structures. During one interview, a host asked, "Martha, what would you say to someone sensing hidden financial betrayal?" She answered without hesitation, "Act with wisdom, not fear. Protect what must be protected. Then keep the door of your heart open for love to walk back in. That balance is everything." Her words traveled widely, quoted on social media and in church bulletins. Viewers described gathering their families to invent secret passphrase and to schedule honest financial talks. Yet, amid all the public praise, Martha cherished the quiet victories most. There were Tuesday dinners when Vanessa arrived early just to help chop vegetables. There were Sunday afternoons spent filming memory letters to Thomas, laughing and crying over stories of camping trips and the infamous burned marshmallows. There were mornings when the only sound in the house was Clover snoring beside the fire while mother and daughter shared coffee in companionable silence. These small, steady moments proved that their reconciliation was no performance. It was life renewed. As the first Blue Iris Scholarship recipients prepared to start college, Martha began a new tradition. Each spring she invited the young women and their families to her home for what she called the Promise Supper. Before dessert, she told them her story. How betrayal nearly broke her heart, how planning saved her finances, and how forgiveness rebuilt her family. The scholarship you receive is more than money, she explained. It's a reminder that wisdom and love must travel together. Protect your future, and keep your relationships stronger than your bank balance. Vanessa added her own testimony. If you ever stumble, and we all do, remember that one honest conversation can change everything. My mom gave me that chance. I hope you give someone that chance too. 2 years later, on a snowy December evening, mother and daughter stood together once more, this time at the annual Blue Iris Gala. Guests from across New England filled the hall with laughter and music. Scholarships had doubled. Mentorship programs had sprouted. What began as a quiet household crisis had become a regional movement. During her closing remarks, Martha revealed one final gift. This year we add a permanent clause. Every grant includes financial coaching and a small fund for the recipient to create their own First Snowfall plan, a personal safety net and a story to pass on. She looked at Vanessa and smiled. Because a plan that saves one family should keep on saving many. The audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet. That night, after guests had gone and Clover had settled at their feet, Martha and Vanessa sat by the fire. You know, Vanessa said, I used to think wealth meant never worrying about tomorrow. Now I think it's about who you face tomorrow with. Martha reached for her daughter's hand. That's the richest truth of all. Outside, the first snow of the season drifted silently down, as if the universe itself was signing their family's renewed covenant. Martha turned to the camera they had set up for a final video message, a tradition they'd started for donors and friends. If you're a mother or grandmother watching this, remember, wise love can stop any storm. Protect what matters, forgive when you can, and build something that outlives fear. She let the silence hold for a heartbeat, then added the story's last gentle invitation. If this journey moved you, share it with someone you love. And tell us in the comments the family habit that keeps your heart safe. No secret words, just the wisdom you live by. Let's fill the world with blue irises of trust. The camera light clicked off. For a long, peaceful minute, the only sound was the soft hiss of new snow on the roof, a sound that had always meant beginnings to Martha Delaney. Subscribe nudge. If this story touched your heart, let's keep the circle of strong mothers and grandmothers growing. Share your own family wisdom in the comments. Your tip might be the one that saves someone's future. And before you head to your next video, tap subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a new life-changing story.